You know? Yeah.
Hope so.
The positives, right? The positives. Before I introduce the positives of the government, the opposition and the negatives, I'd just like to do a brief formality to welcome everyone who's here today on behalf of 2 or 3 organisations and of course the Aboriginals upon whose land that we're lucky enough to have this great university sitting. So first of all, the Accounting Society, who without their support, their enthusiasm and drive, we wouldn't have anything here today. They are an amazing group, and I'm sure you all know that. We all thank them for what they've done. This is apparently their 4th event this semester, which is quite amazing. Secondly, we have to thank Deloitte, coming all the way from Parramatta and Sydney and parts unknown to be here today to present. And, of course, the big team, the A team, the staff and the students from the university who are obviously going to put up a great We're not biased. We want a fair competition. I'm not going to call it as it is, but, you know, hopefully they do well. We're expecting big things from them, right? Now, finally, just a formal welcome on behalf of the Aborigines. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country, the Gadigal peoples of the Eora Nation, whose land upon which the University of Sydney now stands. This land was a learning place in its own right, with education connected to all facets of Aboriginal life and their community. So it's most appropriate that we experience this debate today in that learning environment that the Aborigines were so keen to promote and still are promoting. So we thank the Eora Nation. I look forward to what transpires, so just what I'd like to do before we start the debate is go through some of the ground rules very quickly. We have each speaker who speaks for 4 minutes only. On the 3-minute mark the bell will ring and they have a minute then to wind up and conclude. And on the 4 minutes, that's it, they have to sit down, and if they don't then I'll come over and I'll put them down very quickly. And we will have one from the government, one from the opposition until we get through the 4, and then unfortunately someone has to make a call as to who won, and that's me. There will be no correspondence entered into. I hope I call it correctly, and we hope it's going to be a great debate. So first of all, the team from Deloitte. I will say it's Chris McKendrick is number 1, and Chris might like to stand up just so everyone knows who Chris is. Chris is a manager at Deloitte Private. We then have Joan Tang, and she gets a great round of applause because she's the only woman who's going to get into it. And Joan is also an analyst in assurance and advisory, I'm informed here. We've got Nathan Tran, and Nathan is also an analyst in assurance and advisory, and then finally we have Joshua Goulton. You get a good score, but it won't be probably as good as it should be. Nathan is a graduate from Sydney. And then on the A team, the staff and the students, John Dumay, lecturer. Abdul, another lecturer from the department. I'm a bit worried about this already. There's a few heartthrobs in the audience. And then we've got Will Thomas, President of the and finally, we've got David Webb. So, without any further ado, I'll call upon Chris to start the debate on this fabulous topic. The world would be ideal if accountants were in power. Obviously, no debate at all.
Thanks very much for that kind introduction, Graham. I will remind you that I too am a graduate of Sydney University. I think I started my studies here 9 years ago in this very lecture where I was blessed to have Frank Stilwell as my first university lecturer. So my success here today we can judge on Frank's tutelage. The topic we're here to debate is that the world would be ideal with accountants in charge. we define the world simply as the world we live in, the world that affects everyone. It affects us politically, environmentally and socially. For ideal, we turn to the Macquarie Dictionary, and the definition from the Macquarie Dictionary that we have for ideal is best or most suitable. Accountants, well, we turn to the Macquarie Dictionary for a definition of accountants, but we also take a little bit of creative license when defining accountants. We are accountants, so we know what they are. So we're defining accountants to be people who are realistic, accountable, crime-fighting, selfless, environmentally aware, bound by a code of professional standards and ethics, and also happen to do a bit on the side, examining books and records. In charge, we define as people who are responsible. So we define the topic as the world would be best if people who are realistic, accountable, crime-fighting, justice-seeking, selfless and environmentally aware were responsible. Now, I'll briefly examine the failures of our banks, a bit of an overview of the global financial crisis and how this could have been averted if accountants were in charge, the involvement of investment bankers and non-accountants in that space. We'll look at the recent situation with UBS and the $2 million loss by a rogue trader and how that could, again, have been averted if accountants were in charge. And we'll also look at the basket case that is Greece, and again, how we think that this could be averted if accountants are in charge. But the important thing is that we look at these situations and we see the impact that they have on people, and they're not an ideal impact that they've had on people, they're not good. So accountants could have improved the lives of a number of people if these situations had been averted. My second speaker is going to take us on a walk through history. We'll look at Lincoln, Kennedy, Churchill, Menzies, Gandhi and Mandela, and draw parallels between these great leaders and how the same qualities are found in accountants. My third speaker will take us through the environment and how accountants have made a positive impact on the environment and ultimately the sustainability of the world we live in. My fourth speaker will sum up our argument and convince you without a doubt that the world will be a better place, or the world will be ideal with accountants in charge. Who's in charge currently? Well, I put it to you that currently our leaders are in charge. Our leaders are our political representatives, our elected representatives. Unfortunately, they don't always act in our best interests. They certainly aren't bound by a code of professional standard or conduct. They're not necessarily experts in their field. They're not necessarily experienced and educated. Accountants will bring the world into balance. What do we mean by balance? Balance, debits equal credits. Now, if I speak very briefly on Henry Paulson. Paulson was the former CEO of Goldman Sachs and the former US Treasury Secretary. He is a risk taker by nature and is in charge of the US economy. He is the CFO, or was the CFO, of the US economy during the global financial crisis. Paulson, not an accountant, led the US into the global financial crisis and kind of got it halfway out the other end. Paulson's way of balancing the books was to write massive cheques and bail out a number of investment banks, one of which he had a vested interest in. Accountants, we're bound by a code of professional conduct. We have a conflict of interest if we work on a client that we've got an interest in. Paulson, ex-CEO of Goldman Sachs, is bailing out.
We're done and dusted. That's it.